Hello and welcome to this special live episode of the National Security Conversation. Earlier today, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, addressed the nation to declare the success of Mission Shakti, India's first test of an anti-satellite weapon or ASAT, showcasing its capability to shoot down low-orbit enemy satellites. India is the fourth country to have done this. It takes India to the club of 4 major space powers, Mr. Modi claimed. To discuss this major announcement by the Prime Minister of India and also to understand the technical and strategic aspects of the anti-satellite weapon technology or the ASAT technology, I have with me Dr. Manoj Joshi, Distinguished Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, and Mr. Praveen Sani, Senior National Security Analyst and the founding editor of the Force magazine. Welcome to the National Security Conversation, Praveen and Manoj. Praveen, if I may begin with you, what is this ASAT technology and what uses such a technology have? Please explain the technology to our viewers.
Right. So ASAT is basically a ground-based missile which can intercept a satellite or intercept things in what is called the exo-atmosphere, which is outside the atmosphere. Now the dividing line between the atmosphere and space is roughly 100 kilometers from the sea level. So anything from 100 kilometers above the sea level to over 35,000 kilometers above the sea level is all the place which is called the low Earth orbit, the middle Earth orbit and the high Earth orbit. So you have a plethora of satellites there doing various jobs. You have satellites in the low Earth orbit, then all these navigation satellites, like Galileo, GPS, DRDO, they all are in the mid Earth orbit, basically looking at over 20,000 kilometers. Then you have the geosynchronous, which is 35.
That's another form which is also the Chinese and the Americans and the Russians have experimented with that. And there's yet another kind in which the satellite has a robotic arm. Now this ostensibly is developed to clean up space debris. Right. But you can clean up space debris, you can also catch another satellite and you might it out, you have the LEO, so imaging satellites of the adversary are often in the low Earth orbit. Communication satellites a little higher than that, navigation satellites. So in a defensive measure, you can knock out these satellites so the enemy is blinded.
Can I just add here a bit? I would try to make a bit of a distinction here. You see, when we talk of a ballistic missile defense, right, that is a defensive system.
Yeah.
Now,
and we will come to that later.
No. What I'm saying is, so the interceptor is really then the attack mode thing.
Correct.
Not really, I would want to call it the defense mode. So when we say ASAT, we are talking of attack. When we are talking of BMD, we are talking of defense.
In any case, when you attack another country's satellite, you are actually declaring war in some sense, right? I mean, if it is a military satellite or a communication satellite, you are attacking.
But that's a presumption in the sense that he may have knocked out your satellites to start with. So the point is, the point out here is the capability. The capability can be both defensive and offensive for various reasons. In the sense, India will obviously, when you are the weaker party, you are not going to initiate such an action. You basically have it as a deterrent, so that the other fellow knows that if he knocks out your satellite, you can also knock out some of his satellites.
But if I may add to what Manoj has said, it's a presumption. Why? Because actually nobody has knocked out anybody's satellite till date. So it's a thinking that whether it's a declaration of war or it is not a declaration of war. So there is no clear understanding on this as of now.
Why is it important to master this technology? I mean, given the fact that only 4 countries have sort of mastered this technology, why is it important to master this technology?
So what you can do is actually in war, I mean, I'm talking of the war time, it has a lot of uses. It has uses in cyber, in civilian time. I'm just talking war, right. So in war, you can actually play havoc with the enemy's communication satellites, with the enemy's ISR satellites, with the enemy's, anything that has to do with, because after all, the nerve center of all today's computing and computer centers is all through space.
Right.
And if you can block it, if you can destroy it, that means you are actually, the command and control is completely lost. The situation awareness is lost. So it is a very big thing to happen.
And so you'd agree with that this changes the game in many ways.
You see, it's not. You see, what I'm trying to say is it's like deterrence. You know, nuclear deterrence. Now you know that nuclear deterrence is there. No one actually will dare to actually get into a nuclear war, but you need to still show the other guy that you can do it. Now here again, when something as drastic as attacking someone's satellite comes, that means you're in total war condition. That means, in any case, what's the situation? United States, Russia, China, and now India have these capabilities. All four are also nuclear countries.
Correct.
If we reach the point when someone's satellites are being attacked, that means you're now already in total war conditions. Because that's a very serious.
But there's no question about the fact that this is a technology that is useful. This is a technology that is strategically important. For
no. You see, the point is not that. The point is that it is. One has to be very clear. It's like nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are not weapons.
Sure, I understand.
You know, so what I'm saying, in the same way, you have the ability to deter the other person is what is required.
Can I just add here why it is very useful? Is the reason is this. You see, today the ballistic missile defense, no country really has the capability, even today, at the launch phase itself, the boost phase, to intercept it there.
That's right.
So in that case, if you do not have that sort of a capability, ASAT is the best that you have. And after ASAT, we are looking at DEUs, directed energy weapons.
Right, yeah.
We are looking at lasers, we are looking at microwave weapons, we are looking at a whole lot of things, how we can put in space.
Okay, let me ask you, Praveen, because you sort of tweeted this morning about it, and you sort of questioned the utility of shooting down a satellite which was stationed about 300 kilometers away. You said, Mission Shakti is a technological demonstrator. Most military satellites are in a low Earth orbit, which is from 160 kilometers to 2000 kilometers. The fired ASAT was at 300 kilometers. Minimum needed is 800 kilometers. So we lack high energy propulsion. This is also why our BMD interceptor failed and we got S-400. Can you explain this to
Yes.
of yours?
You see, now most of these satellites in the low Earth orbit, as I said, it goes till 2000 kilometers. Now they will be obviously on the higher side, starting from 800, 900, 1000 kilometers. That is where you will have them.
Right.
Now, if you show a capability at 300, what exactly are you trying to kill? Basically, it is a technology demonstrator. What you have shown is that, all right, I can reach an altitude of 300, which is really nothing at all, considering that our adversary, our supposed adversary, China, today has showcased the capability 35,000 kilometer plus. They can go out.
So the maximum we can go is 300.
So what amazed me about this was that it is a mere technology demonstrator. It is no deterrent value at all. Because a technology demonstrator does not have a deterrent value. So when a senior minister like Mr. Jaitley is tweeting and saying, that now we have that power and that deterrent value, well, I'm actually scratching my head.
So, here is the issue. He is saying that you have now demonstrated the capability to shoot down a satellite perched at 300 kilometers above Earth. China has the capability to station its satellites at 35,000 kilometers. So what value have you added to?
See, I think the point that Praveen also made was the question of technology demonstrator. Don't forget, our first Agni was a technology demonstrator. So it took a long time before that Agni technology demonstrator became an Agni usable missile. Even today, it has a limited range, meaning it's basically a medium range ballistic missile. We still haven't got a long range missile. Now you take the same thing, the adversary satellite is 30,000 feet up, 30,000 meters up. Okay. Now how are you going to, when you fire this thing 30,000 kilometers? Okay. Your missile must have that range. Your missile only has a range of what? 5,000.
5,000 kilometers. Yeah.
That's your maximum, because now he's going up. He's not going to come down. So there is a requirement for certain types of missiles, and that high energy part of it is very important because you're dealing with a very fast moving object up in space. Okay? So
not as fast moving as an ICBM probably.
No, yeah. I'm told it's almost as fast as an ICBM.
You know, not only that, if you are, for example, you mentioned ICBM, longer the range, the more altitude it has to go.
That's right.
Simple.
Yeah.
So if you see this simple thing, if you will not have a capability, a high energy propellant, and if you are actually demonstrating a propellant that takes you to 300, and the Prime Minister of India is saying that this is an achievement, sure it is, as a technology demonstrator, but please remember, you see, I have always maintained that deterrence for a nation like India is about hiding a capability. You have really exposed your deterrence to the world, and the Prime Minister himself has done it, that this is all that I can do today.
What we have arrived at this point of time is this. We have now demonstrated the ability to hit a target at 300 kilometers in the space, but that is not going to be strategically useful vis-a-vis Pakistan or China. It is a technology demonstrator, but should the Prime Minister have come to the national media and announced it? Is it that big?
No, it is not. In fact, I would have expected a junior DRDO scientist to give the story to a reporter. I mean,
right.
Because both of us have been covering for a very long time, looking at defense for decades now. I mean, tell anybody today, a BMD or a ASAT, we are looking at 300 kilometers. And let me tell you another thing. Dr. Saraswat, he gave me a major interview in February 2010. I remember at that time he told me that we have
that in the Force magazine.
Force magazine. Yeah. He said we have a capability to go to the altitude of 200 kilometers. Now they are saying that it was the Modi government which gave the green signal for this program to get resurrected. Now, if in 5 years of the Modi government, the DRDO has only moved 100 kilometers altitude, well, there we are.
But I'd like to also cite the other interview, which was to India Today.
By Saraswat,
and where he said very clearly we have the building blocks of a ASAT system, number one, and number two, in the Times of India thing, in 28th April 2012, he said that by 2014 we'll have a full system. That means, I'm assuming that 2014 we had the system, so this business that the Modi government which has done it, see, don't forget, Happy Mon, why is the government using the term Shakti for this?
Right.
They are trying to evoke the Shakti tests, which were the nuclear tests.
98.
Why name it? They are trying to kind of appropriate. The BJP is very good in appropriating. So they've appropriated Sardar Patel. So here is, so you are appropriating the achievement of the Vajpayee government by terming this Shakti. You could have named it something else.
Right. Okay. So nobody is taking away the importance.
A small point here, a small point which is very important after what he has said. You see, Dr. Saraswat said very clearly, not to me but to everybody in general, that by 2013, phase 1 of the BMD will be ready. Phase 1 basically is that missiles up to 2000 kilometers will be able to intercept. And by 2016, we will have phase 2 over. My point is, if we really were anywhere near that, why did we buy the S-400?
So, before we move on to the next point, I want to say to this issue, which is, this is certainly not this is an achievement. We are not taking away from that fact.
Yeah, but it's not an achievement of comparable to the nuclear tests of 1998.
It is too little, too slow, too late, and the timing gives a different message.
Nor is it an announcement worthy of Prime Minister's time.
Not at all. No, not to my mind. I don't know what his views are.
Yeah, I personally think they're trying to, this whole business of appropriation, when you name it Shakti, you're trying to live off the nuclear tests of 98, which was definitely a major right. Development. This is nothing comparable to that. We pointed out the technologies had already been developed, probably the capabilities had been developed already to considerable extent.
Okay, let's get to the next point about BMD. We did mention that. How is the ASAT technology different from the BMD technology? Does the ASAT technology, the maturation of the ASAT technology, add value to India's BMD capability, What are the linkages between, say, the ICBMs, ASAT and BMD?
It is the other way around. It is the other way around. The key thing is the BMW. First of all, BMW is a very comprehensive BMD. Sorry, BMD.
BMW is good too.
Yeah, I know. So BMD is a very comprehensive thing that is required, because you need a capability to first detect, then track, keep tracking it, then interception. So it's a big thing. Now, a part of that is really the interceptor.
Right.
And please, the big thing is, which has to be underscored, that intercepting a missile is much more difficult than intercepting a satellite.
Absolutely.
Because the satellite has a fixed orbit.
That's right.
The missile, ballistic missile, because of the aerodynamics and other changes, it will not have
Other uncertainties.
Exactly. So
Also, the cross section of the missile is, and I'm quoting Dr. Saraswat, 0.1 square meters is the cross section of the missile, whereas the cross section of the satellite is 1 meter.
And we have in the past, India has, Saraswat himself has made this claim several times in the past, that India has mastered the ballistic missile defense capability.
No, it hasn't.
He said once, for example, Delhi and Mumbai
No. But listen, if we had that capability, and if we
No,
could
he's saying that he said.
He said.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
He did say.
Yeah. So my point is, what was the need to buy S-400s? You see, S-400s are precisely for the same job. It's another matter that the Indian Air Force wants to use them in a different way, which is not the subject now. You see, but they are supposed to protect the cities. For example, you go to Moscow, it's there to protect Moscow. Similarly, it was meant to protect the big cities. Now, if we had our own BMW, and if the I'm really sorry, if we had our own ballistic missile defense, as Dr. Saraswat had said, and he gave the timelines also, so there is a major slippage in technology basically, and there is a major slippage in timing, and actually if you ask me, the government needs to ask and perhaps do a technical audit. Because why a technical audit today of a ballistic missile defense is important is so that we know exactly what is our ASAT capability.
Well, do you agree with that? Is there need for a technical audit given the fact that there are claims and claims that are made but we don't see anything happening?
See, there are lots of claims. For example, most of the BMD tests were done against the Prithvi missile.
Right.
Now, Prithvi is one of the crudest and smallest of our missiles. It's a 1 meter wide, huge fat missile, which goes very slow. Its range, 150 kilometers was the range of the missile.
Easy target.
And this missile, this target missile, it's fired actually just 70 kilometers away from Wheeler Island.
Okay.
So the whole tests have been set up. You know, the BMD tests, they have never tested the BMD interceptor against an actual Agni. Agni 2, Agni 3,
absolutely.
Agni 5, leave alone Agni 5. They have not tested the BMD against an actual medium range ballistic missile, which would then say, yes, we have that capability. So they have been, the tests have been, what should I say, put up jobs, as it were.
Right,
That's why I wonder whether this ASAT test, because the same set of people are doing it, to what extent...
What does that mean?
What I'm trying to say is that, do we have independent confirmation that a satellite was actually knocked off? Is there any trace of debris? Now this will await third parties.
Telemetric data. Would you agree with that?
This is a very interesting point.
See, it's a third party confirmation, because frankly, I'll be very frank with you, I don't trust the DRDO.
Right.
I don't trust the
Going by
DRDO
the tall claim
because they've been making tall claims on the BMD. So BMD is closely related to this.
Correct.
You see?
Correct.
So I'm saying if they've been making tall claims there, they could be making tall claims here, and for political reasons, the government has decided to buy it.
Yeah, this is the bad time to ask for evidence and all that kind of backup data, because you could be accused of being an anti-national. But do you think, as a former army man, as an analyst, senior national security analyst, do you think the government needs to come clean on some of these claims that they have been making for it, not just during this government's time, but even during the past government's time? There's a need to come out in public and say this is what we have.
Oh, absolutely, and why not? Because you see, it's having been in the service myself, I don't know what is the way the wind is blowing these days. Otherwise, anything that you do, you showcase and you say, all right, this is what has been achieved. And why not? And the people, after all, are paying the money. I mean, we are the taxpayers. We are paying the money. We definitely want to know. I mean, if the Prime Minister decides to say that this is the maximum capability we have, which I think should not have been done in the first place, because we exposed our deterrence to our adversaries, that this is actually capability we have, then at least the least they can do is show us the space, the telemetry. Why not?
Manoj, I think that's a very interesting point. He's saying that, listen, by saying in public, in full public view, that our ability is only 300 kilometers to strike, to shoot down a satellite, enemy satellite, have we sort of weakened our own deterrence capability in some ways? Or was that always known to?
Well, look, the 2007 Chinese test was to a satellite which was 845 kilometers, this thing. The Dongmeng, the 2 and Dongmeng 3 sounding rockets that the Chinese have been using, they are actually going up to the geosynchronous orbits, the 36,000 feet. They are sounding rockets which they, according to the Pentagon, I don't know how accurate this is. So the Chinese are pretty far advanced in their capabilities, okay? In their ASAT capability.
So should we have kept quiet about our?
So I think when you are the weaker party, it is shrewd policy to keep quiet. It is to hide your capabilities, because if you a country like the United States can say, broadcast to the world that we can do this, we can do that, because you're already at the top, okay? But when you are a weaker party, and Chinese also do it, they don't admit, many of these BMD tests have not been admitted by the Chinese. Many of the SC-19 BMD tests, the Chinese, it's the Pentagon which has revealed that.
So he is absolutely right. You see, for a weaker country with less technology, hiding is deterrence. For a major power with good technology, showcasing is deterrence. It is just opposite. You see, now in our case, in fact, I mean, because you mentioned this somewhere in passing, I thought, even we had the Balakot and we had the Pakistan Air Force responding, retaliating the next day. To my mind, that has in some ways exposed our conventional war capabilities.
The fact that you got one of your MiG-21 shot down, you have one of your M17 helicopters shot down by friendly fire, by some reports at least, shows that, well, your conventional capability is pretty weak. And by making claims such as this that the Prime Minister made this morning, you may be in a situation that instead of showing strength, you may have showcased weakness.
So you see, the point is, why is this being done? This is being done, to my mind, for the benefit of the people who don't understand this subject at all. But unfortunately, the adversary knows as much as we know. And when the Prime Minister says a thing like this, the adversary knows exactly what you have, what is your capability, and that weakens us.
But one more question about the synergy among various platforms. Now we're talking about BMD, we're talking about picking up real-time intelligence from space, military satellites, etc., etc. So does the test that was carried out today, does that add value to the synergy that should exist in our military platforms for a future?
The answer is no.
Why?
Because, as I said, it's a technology demonstrator. It's a spin-off of something that we were trying to do. So first of all, we have to go back to the basics. We have to go to the drawing board, which is the ballistic missile defense. How much we have advanced there, because it is the same interceptor which has been used here. So the point is, if it has added any value, my response is no.
Manoj, you mentioned, you talked about deterrence earlier on. Does BMD capability reduce the deterrence value among nuclear adversaries?
You see, this is the problem. You are trying to deter a country, which is Pakistan, let's say, or even China, because they're both neighbors. So the time it will take their missiles to hit your targets will be 2 to 4 minutes,
Right.
The United States, which started this whole ballistic missile defense business, you see, is protected by 2 oceans. And even the United States is finding it difficult. So it's all right, the United States has the capability of taking out medium-range ballistic missiles. So that is not a problem for them. With their SM-3s and with the Patriot systems, limited shorter range missiles, but ICBM tests have not succeeded. And ICBM tests against a lone warhead is one thing. ICBM tests against a cluster of missiles coming in at you. I don't think that it's a solvable problem.
Yeah, but I think what I'm trying to ask is really, is it a good idea for a country to have BMD technology, given the fact that BMD somehow weakens strategic stability?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, say you know that very well, that this is the big issue about strategic stability. So what does a country like Pakistan do?
Yeah.
The country like Pakistan just increases the number of missiles it has.
And merving those missiles.
Well, not only merving, just you keep on producing missiles so that you can send them in a swarm.
Right.
You see, so discrimination, and then you send decoys. So, and when you're talking of 2 to 4 minute time, you know, no system in the world can protect you against. So there is an issue. This BMD is something which we should have discussed. We have during the Bush administration, for some reason, the Americans persuaded us that we should become part of their BMD program. I don't know. There's been no real progress in that direction. But this whole DRDO search for this thing has been, you know, a bit of the it's like the quixotic search. And when it comes to the Chinese, of course, they are looking at the United States,
right,
across the ocean.
Yeah.
So they think that they can build a limited BMD capability. But can you build BMD capability against your neighbor?
So how do you? Can I just add on this? You see, when we did the ballistic missile defense, we announced that. Pakistani said that, look, this is a destabilizing factor, as you mentioned.
Correct.
And as he rightly mentioned, that they took the countermeasures, they were taken. Now we have done the ASAT. Now tomorrow you will find in their papers, because you have given them the perfect excuse for closer cooperation between the two iron friends. You see.
But the question that I was trying to ask is that how do you rate DRDO's search for this silver bullet called BMD capability? I mean, you've been looking at it for the last 20 years.
No, it's there for anybody to see. I mean, you see the end result. We have not delivered something we were to deliver in 2013, 2015, and hence we bought the S400. Now what is left of this is just to see what all we can salvage. And what we can salvage is only by a technical audit to see what all technologies are there. We have spent so much of money into this program, and what are those technologies which can have a spin-off elsewhere.
You know, I saw on Twitter, I don't know if you tweeted or somebody else tweeted, that the argument that India's civilian space program
I did.
You did, by ISRO and its military assets by DRDO are now looking at a certain merging somewhere. Yeah. What does that tell you about the sort of thinking that's happening in Delhi? Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? Should they be kept separate, or is synergy a good idea?
No, it's very bad.
Why?
Because we always took that high moral ground. Unlike China, unlike Pakistan, which started their program, the space program, which came out of their missile program. In our case, we said our space program is a civilian program, it's absolutely separate.
Fine.
Now, there has been a cooperation. Now, how much of a cooperation is not important. The important thing is that certainly when next time some major powers want to critically look at our space program, what stops them from sanctions on them?
But that's more of a moralistic argument, don't you think?
is,
Because,
I think, but you know, the fact of the matter is, to be very frank, the ISRO has been a remarkable organization and it has achieved a tremendous lot.
Absolutely.
You see, despite all the sanctions and everything, the ISRO's fabrication of PSLV and then the GSLV, the satellites, has been a great achievement for the country. There is absolutely no doubt about that. In fact, the DRDO is so incompetent that they were not able to make the first stage, solid stage of the Agni. It was fabricated by the DRDO, by the ISRO. You know, now at that time, because of MTCR and all, we used to be reluctant to say so. But ISRO technology has actually helped the DRDO, which has not been able to do. And
See, he's right. Kalam came from there.
Yeah,
He was in SLV, and please remember that despite all the sanctions, ISRO has still been able to show something about the cryogenic technology.
So given the fact that where we are as a country today, technologically where we are, we don't need to really fight shy of the fact that there is a certain amount of synergy between ISRO and DRDO today.
So, you see, now frankly, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
what I do, why we need a distinct military program is because the military requirements are different. In the sense that as you become more and more sophisticated, you have communications, you have navigation, your missile navigation, your early warning systems, etc. So it is better to keep the military this thing. The civilian program should is a damn good program. It should be left as it is. It should, the danger is that
Don't contaminate by
the danger is that if you contaminate, give it military objective. You can certainly utilize technologies. That's a perfectly reasonable thing. That ISRO technologies can be utilized by this thing. It's after all national assets. But I think that they should be kept separate. The military program should be military. The civilian program should be civilian.
There is another view, a counter view to that. If you see China after their 2015 military reforms came up with this strategic support force, where space is one of the things. Now in space they have merged both the things, but in any case, in their case, it started with the missile program, as he rightly said. But having said that, you see, the point is that if we have a capability, now what prevents us really from not merging the two is that whatever has been the achievement of space and whatever sort of whatever they were getting from outside the help, that should continue to our space program. So to that extent, it's a good idea.
Fine.
But
No, see, but let's look at it this way. India recently announced the creation of a space agency in place of a space commander that was in sort of demand for a very long time. So now you have these technologies that are developing, but you don't probably have the intellectual or strategic wherewithal to sort of accommodate these technologies into your strategic planning. Would I be right in saying that therefore you're looking at a situation where the technology is overtaking strategy, or technology is determining the contours of strategy?
There has always been between technology and doctrine, what comes first. But in our case, I think it is the acceptability of the technology. And I'll give you something very interesting.
Right.
One of the very senior DRDO scientists, he told me that, look, we are looking at hypersonic technologies. We made a presentation to the defense services, but the defense services right now are not amenable to that. Now, hello, what are we talking about?
Right. Okay.
I mean, if you don't want, you have to say, give a nod to those fellows, so that then they can make a case for that.
So you're looking at fits and starts here and there. I mean, small.
See, the whole defense system is in a mess.
Yeah.
The whole defense system is in a complete mess. There is no strategic planning. There is no national security strategy. There is no integration. So when you got to put in money into some expensive stuff, space, military space applications, hypersonic vehicles, there has to be someone who's thinking about all this. But he can't think that I'm Air Force, so I'll think because it's a plane, I'll think about it and no one else. But it has to do with nuclear weapons. It has to do with defense against nuclear weapons. This is something which in the Indian system, in its wisdom, they keep the military away from it. So they are not, the military is excluded from any contribution into nuclear issues.
So the occasional demonstration of technology is not good enough. You need to have a system of systems.
You see, look, demonstration gets you into trouble. And India is a classic case. I can write an entire paper on this. I had once written on the Agni system. What happens with technology demonstration is that the other guy takes it seriously.
Right,
you see, so when you did technology demonstration in Pokhran in 1974,
yes.
You said peaceful nuclear energy. So it was technology demonstration, but Pakistan took you seriously and went and made a nuclear weapon before you. Likewise, you did technology demonstration of Agni 1. Pakistanis went to the Chinese, got equivalent missiles. So what I'm saying is that technology demonstration by itself is all right if you're a very powerful country and you can tell the other guy, look boys, I've got this, and you better watch out.
So to add to what he is saying, what is required is, I used to always say that the DRDO scientists should not boast too much in public.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the head of the government has done that today. So what is required is lie low and try and achieve a uniformity of excellence in technology.
Right.
Now, yeah.
How do you rate our ASAT technology vis-a-vis the potential strategic threats from China in the sort of domain?
No, China is not perturbed. I mean, China would want to know, because China would want to see what sort of a danger is going to Pakistan and how they can openly assist Pakistan. More than that,
China is already helping Pakistan through Baidu systems, right?
You know, the Chinese keep a close watch on our system. The day you tested when you had, I think, when you tested your Agni 5, they set up a BMD station in Qinghai Plateau, which is basically observing the launches from here, basically to track the launches and to take out the launches.
Yeah.
So, you know, they have their own this thing.
Yeah.
They know how advanced you are, and they are ready to take care of it.
beyond that.
Yeah.
They never do that.
Talking about China-Pakistan strategic partnership in this particular domain, do you think China's Baidu systems are really immensely useful for the navigation systems, useful for Pakistan's?
I would say yes. I would say yes, for the simple reason that this is supposed to be a total of 35 satellites.
Right.
33 are already in place.
Right.
And they want to finish this whole thing in 2020. It will be done.
And they're also being modernized.
Yeah. After that, if there was any sort of threat or blackmail coming to Pakistan from, on their GPS usage by the Americans, even that is over.
So this is not the time to
It's
make grand
independence.
declarations. This is the time to step on the gas and develop the systems that are
Absolutely.
required.
I mean, this declaration, in fact, was completely unwarranted and unwanted, and certainly not by the head of the government.
My final question is a political question. So this is clearly work in progress. It is neither complete nor developed by the India government. So what explains the timing of this announcement according to you?
Elections. Basically, elections, the whole.
But people know this is just 300 kilometers. Don't people know that?
No. People, the average, the guy is saying, "Humne satellite maar diya." Huh?
ठीक है.
So it's grandstanding. You look at all the TV channels who are favorable to the government. They'll be saying it will be equivalent of what we have achieved. What we have achieved back in Shakti tests. You see. So they are making it out. That's what I'm saying. It's a very clever way of trying to somehow claim that we have done something extraordinary, which is not true. There is an achievement. Yes, you've done this test. You have knocked out the 300 kilometers, but it is being exaggerated wildly for electoral reasons.
You see, the very fact that the Prime Minister says that now we are in the club along with the 4 big powers, that is what people understand. The disparity with that club is completely immaterial. You see, it doesn't make any sense to the people. So now everybody knows that now we are at the same level as America, China, and we are there, and Russia.
Thank you, Praveen. Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all from us at The Wire. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. But